The classroom buzzed with dozens of alien voices, each species trying to prove they were the most dangerous. Maya Rodriguez sat in the back corner, her notebook open and pen ready. She had learned long ago that the loudest voices rarely said the most important things. A massive Vorthon warrior named Skarak slammed his clawed fist on his desk. The metal surface dented under the impact. "My species conquered 12 star systems before your people learned to make fire," he growled at a group of Kalari students. The Kalari, tall and pale with large black eyes, simply stared back with their unsettling telepathic calm. "Physical strength means nothing," one of the Kalari replied, his voice eerily synchronized with his teammates. "We move as one mind, one purpose. Individual warriors always fall to coordinated telepathic assault." Near the front of the room, a Zephyrian female named Swiftwing practically vibrated in her seat. Her species moved so fast that cameras could barely track them. "Speed is life," she said, her words coming out in rapid bursts. "You cannot hit what you cannot see, cannot plan against what moves faster than thought." Maya kept writing in her notebook, recording every boast, every claim, every weakness hidden behind bravado. She had been at the Galactic Military Academy on Nexus Prime for 3 months now, one of only 5 humans in the exchange program. The others tried to fit in by matching the alien students' aggressive posturing. Maya preferred to listen. Commander Vextar entered the classroom with heavy footsteps that made the floor shake. The Korthak stood over 8 feet tall, his natural armor plates gleaming under the lights. Scars covered his hide, each one a story of survival against impossible odds. The room fell silent instantly. Even the most arrogant students knew better than to challenge a Korthak warrior. "Today you begin the survival simulation," Vextar announced, his voice like grinding stone. "For the next 5 days, you will face challenges designed to test everything you think you know about warfare, survival, and tactics." His yellow eyes swept across the room, pausing briefly on Maya before dismissing her entirely. "Most of you will fail. Some of you will learn why your species have remained confined to single-star systems, while others rule entire sectors of space." Jake Murphy, the human sitting 2 rows ahead of Maya, raised his hand nervously. "Sir, what exactly will we be facing in these simulations?" Vextar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "If I told you, it would not be a test of adaptation, would it, human?" The way he said human made it sound like an insult. "You will be placed in teams of 4. Mixed species. You will learn to work together or you will fail together." The commander began reading team assignments from a data pad. The Vorthon warriors were split up, much to their obvious displeasure. The Kalari telepaths were separated, breaking their mental links. The fastest Zephyrians were paired with slower species. Maya listened as names were called, noting the commander's strategy of forcing species out of their comfort zones. "Team 7. Vextar's voice boomed. "Rodriguez, Maya, Human, Murphy, Jake." "Human, Noritel, Eldari, Zipnok, Plenari." Maya looked around for her teammates. Jake turned to wave at her with a nervous smile. She had observed him during their first week at the academy. He talked too much when he was scared, which was most of the time. But he was also quick to learn and adapt, traits that might prove useful. Noritel was easy to spot among the Eldari students. Her people were tall and elegant, with silver skin that seemed to glow softly. The Eldari were known as healers and philosophers, a pacifist species that had mastered medicine and refused to take lives. Other students often mocked them as weak, but Maya had noticed how Noritel's eyes tracked every movement in the room, cataloging threats and calculating risks. Zipnak took longer to locate. The Plenari were small, barely 4 feet tall, with large eyes and delicate features. Their species had developed incredible engineering skills to compensate for their physical limitations. They built the best ships, the most advanced weapons, and the most complex defense systems in known space. Zipnak sat hunched over a portable computer, his fingers flying across holographic keys at impossible speed. "Team assignments are final," Vextar continued. "No changes will be made regardless of personal preferences or species compatibility issues. You have 1 hour to meet with your team and discuss basic strategies. The simulation begins at 800 tomorrow." As the other students began gathering with their teammates, Maya remained seated. She watched the Vorthon warriors immediately start planning aggressive assault tactics. The Kalari teams attempted to establish telepathic networks with their non-telepathic members. The Zephyrians paced restlessly, clearly uncomfortable with being slowed down by their teammates. Jake appeared beside her desk, followed by Noratel and Zipnak. "So Maya," Jake said, "you've been pretty quiet these past few months. Got any ideas for how we tackle this simulation?" Maya closed her notebook and looked at each of her teammates carefully. Jake was nervous but determined. Noratel seemed genuinely concerned about the potential for violence in the simulation. Zipnak looked like he wanted to be anywhere else but here. "What do you think the commander wants us to learn?" Maya asked instead of answering Jake's question. "How to fight as a team," Jake suggested. "How to survive against superior numbers," Zipnak offered quietly. "How to win without losing ourselves," Noratel said, her voice carrying the wisdom of her peaceful species. Maya nodded slowly. "All good answers, but I think he wants to see how we handle being underestimated." She glanced toward the front of the room where Vextar was watching the other teams with obvious approval as they planned their aggressive strategies. "Look around. Every team is planning to fight their way through whatever challenges we face. They're all assuming this will be about combat and direct confrontation, isn't it?" Jake asked. Maya smiled slightly, the first expression she had shown all day. "Jake, what's the most dangerous predator on Earth?" Jake thought for a moment. "Lions, tigers, great white sharks?" "Humans," Maya replied simply. "And we didn't get to the top of the food chain by being the strongest or fastest or having the biggest teeth. We got there by being smarter, more patient, and more adaptable than everything that tried to eat us." Noratel's silver eyes widened slightly with understanding. Zipnak stopped typing and looked up from his computer. Jake's nervous expression shifted to something approaching confidence. "So what's the plan?" he asked. Maya stood up, shouldering her simple backpack while other students loaded themselves down with weapons and equipment. "We survive, we learn, and we show them that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't look dangerous at all." The simulation maze stretched out before them like a metallic nightmare. Walls rose 30 feet high, covered in sensors and defensive systems. Strange lights flickered in the distance, and the air hummed with barely contained energy. Maya stood at the entrance with her team, watching as other groups charged forward with weapons ready and battle cries echoing through the corridors. "Remember," Vextar's voice boomed over the intercom system, "your objective is to reach one of 3 extraction points within the maze. You will face automated defense systems, environmental hazards, and phantom drones. The Phantoms are hunter-killer units designed to eliminate contestants with neural disruptors. They are nearly undetectable and extremely dangerous. Begin." Skarak led his Vorthon team into the maze with a roar, their claws extended and armor gleaming. They disappeared around the first corner, leaving gouges in the metal walls from their aggressive advance. The Kalari moved in perfect formation, their telepathic coordination allowing them to turn corners simultaneously without speaking. The Zephyrian teams became blurs of motion, racing through the passages at incredible speeds. Jake hefted his training weapon nervously. "Should we follow one of the other teams? Safety in numbers?" "No," Maya said quietly, studying the maze entrance. While other teams had rushed in immediately, she had spent the first few minutes observing. The walls weren't just barriers, they were covered in tiny holes and sensors. The floor plates showed wear patterns that indicated which routes were used most frequently. Even the lighting seemed designed to create blind spots and shadows. Noratel knelt beside the entrance, her medical scanner active. "I'm detecting elevated electromagnetic readings throughout the structure. Whatever those phantom drones are, they're using advanced technology." Zipnak's large eyes darted nervously as he consulted his handheld computer. "My engineering sensors show multiple power sources moving through the maze. Some are probably teams, but others..." He swallowed hard. "Others are definitely artificial, and they're fast." A scream echoed from somewhere deep in the maze, followed by the sound of energy weapons firing. Then silence. "First casualty," Maya observed calmly. "Jake, put the weapon away." "What?" "But we might need to fight. We might need to run, hide, or think our way out of trouble," Maya interrupted. "The weapon will just make you feel brave when you should be feeling careful." She led them into the maze, but instead of taking the main corridor like the other teams, she guided them to a narrow maintenance passage she had spotted along the side wall. The passage was barely wide enough for them to walk single file, but it ran parallel to the main route. "Maya," Jake whispered as they moved through the cramped space. "How did you even see this passage?" "I was looking right at the wall and didn't notice it." "You were looking at the maze like a challenge to be conquered," Maya replied softly. I was looking at it like a puzzle to be understood. There's a difference. They had been moving for 10 minutes when they heard it, a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Zipnak's scanner started beeping frantically. Something's coming. Something big. Through a grate in the wall, they could see into the main corridor. A sleek black shape glided through the passage like a shadow-given form. The phantom drone was beautiful in a terrifying way, its surface absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Sensors covered its hull like eyes, and weapon ports opened and closed as it scanned for targets. The drone paused directly across from their hiding spot. Maya held her breath and motioned for the others to remain perfectly still. The phantom's sensors swept back and forth, probing for any sign of life. After what felt like an eternity, it continued down the corridor. How did it not detect us? Noratel whispered once the drone was gone. Maya pointed to the walls around them. This maintenance passage is shielded. The engineers who built this maze needed a way to service the systems without triggering the security. The phantoms are programmed to ignore these areas unless they detect actual movement or energy signatures. They continued through the maintenance network, with Maya navigating by studying the subtle differences in wall construction and airflow patterns. Twice more they encountered phantoms through the grates, and each time Maya guided them to complete stillness until the threats passed. The sound of combat echoed through the maze as teams encountered the hunter-killer drones. Energy weapons fired, metal screamed under strain, and occasionally they heard the distinctive whine of neural disruptors activating. Each sound was followed by silence. "We should help them," Noratel said after they heard another team being eliminated. "How?" Maya asked gently. "By getting ourselves killed too. The best way to help anyone right now is to understand what we're facing and find a way to deal with it." They reached an intersection where the maintenance passage connected with a major corridor. Through the grate, they could see Skarak crouched behind a piece of debris, bleeding from several wounds. His team was gone. A phantom drone circled him slowly, playing with its prey like a cat with a wounded mouse. Jake started to move toward the grate. "We have to do something," Maya caught his arm. "We will, but not how you think." She studied the scene carefully, noting the phantom's movement pattern, the way it positioned itself, the timing of its sensor sweeps. Then she picked up a small piece of metal debris from the maintenance passage. "Zip, I need you to create a small electrical discharge, something that will show up on sensors but won't actually hurt anyone." The Plenary engineer looked confused but activated a tool from his kit. A small spark of electricity danced between his fingers. Maya waited until the phantom was at the far end of its patrol pattern, then threw the metal debris down a side corridor. At the same moment, she signaled Zip to discharge his spark in the opposite direction. The phantom sensors immediately detected both signals. Confused by the multiple contacts, it hesitated for a crucial second. "Now," Maya whispered. Noratel was already moving, her medical training making her quick and precise. She darted from the maintenance passage, grabbed Skarak's arm, and pulled him toward their hiding spot. The Vorthon warrior was too stunned and injured to resist. The phantom spun toward the movement, but Skarak and Noratel were already disappearing into the maintenance passage. The drone fired at empty space, then began searching frantically for its vanished prey. In the safety of the maintenance tunnel, Noratel quickly treated Skarak's wounds while the Vorthon stared at Maya with something approaching awe. "How did you know that would work?" he asked quietly, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Maya checked her watch. They had been in the maze for 2 hours, and she estimated they were about halfway to the nearest extraction point. "I watched how it hunted. Phantoms are programmed to be efficient, which means they follow predictable patterns. Once you understand the pattern, you can exploit it." "But how did you see the pattern so quickly?" Maya smiled slightly. "Practice. Humans have been prey animals for most of our evolution. We got very good at studying predators and finding their weaknesses." Skarak was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice held a respect that hadn't been there before. "May I travel with your team?" "I promise I will follow your guidance." Maya looked at her teammates. Jake nodded immediately. Noratel was already treating the Vorthon like another patient under her care. Zipnak seemed relieved to have someone with actual combat experience on their side, even if he was injured. "You can come," Maya said, "but no more charging into fights. In this maze, the smart survive and the aggressive become food for the phantoms." As they prepared to continue their journey through the maintenance network, Another team's screams echoed from somewhere in the distance. Maya listened carefully, cataloging the sounds and trying to understand what new threat they might face. Maya, Jake said quietly, I'm starting to think this simulation isn't really about testing our combat skills. No, Maya agreed, studying the maze schematic she had been mentally building as they traveled. It's about testing how we think when everything we know about warfare becomes useless. The maintenance tunnels led them deeper into the maze's heart, where the walls hummed with more power and the air itself seemed to vibrate with hidden dangers. Maya moved carefully, studying every junction and monitoring the patterns of electromagnetic activity that Noratel's scanner detected. Behind her, Skarak limped along quietly, his earlier bravado replaced by careful observation of Maya's methods. There, Maya whispered, pointing to a grate that opened into a large chamber. We're almost at the first extraction point. Through the metal slats they could see a circular room with 3 exits. In the center stood a glowing pillar marked with alien symbols, the extraction beacon they needed to reach. But the room wasn't empty. 2 phantom drones circled the beacon like mechanical sharks, their sensors sweeping constantly for any sign of intruders. How do we get past them? Jake asked quietly. Maya didn't answer immediately. She was watching the drones' patrol patterns, timing their movements, studying how they responded to different stimuli. After 10 minutes of observation, she had mapped their behavior completely. We don't get past them, she said finally. We make them get past each other. Zipnak looked confused. I don't understand. Maya pointed to the chamber's ceiling where maintenance panels and support beams created a complex network of shadows. Phantoms hunt by detecting movement, heat signatures, and electrical activity. But they're also programmed to avoid damaging the facility's infrastructure. Watch what happens when they get too close to the power conduits. As they observed, one of the drones drifted too near a major power line. Its sensors immediately detected the electrical field and the drone moved away, maintaining a safe distance from the infrastructure. They have safety protocols, Noratel's realized. They won't fire if there's a chance of damaging vital systems. Exactly. And if we can make them see each other as threats? Maya trailed off, her mind working through the possibilities. She began removing small components from her equipment pack, a signal mirror, some metallic tape, a small battery pack. The others watched as she assembled what looked like a crude electronic device. This will generate a false sensor signature, she explained quietly, something that looks like a weapon charging up. Zip, can you create a timer that will activate this device in exactly 3 minutes? The Plenary engineer nodded and quickly modified the device with tools from his kit. 3 minutes from now, he whispered. Maya carefully slid the device through the grate and used the metallic tape to attach it to the underside of a support beam directly between the 2 patrolling drones. Then she led her team to a position where they could observe the chamber from a different angle. They waited. 2 minutes passed. The drones continued their patrol patterns, oblivious to the trap being set. At exactly 3 minutes, the device activated. Both phantoms detected the energy signature immediately. Their sensors locked onto what appeared to be a weapon, powering up in the exact center of their patrol routes. Following their programming, they moved to eliminate the threat. The 2 drones converged on the device from opposite directions, their weapons charging. At the last second, their proximity sensors detected each other. Their artificial intelligence systems registered multiple contacts in the same location, the false signature and each other. Confusion rippled through their programming. The safety protocols that prevented them from damaging infrastructure now extended to avoiding friendly fire. They began circling each other warily, each trying to get a clear shot at the false target without hitting their partner. Now, Maya whispered. She led them through the grate and into the chamber, moving along the walls where the shadows were deepest. The phantoms were completely focused on their mechanical dance around the false target. Their sensors locked on each other and the decoy device. Maya reached the extraction beacon first, placing her hand on the glowing surface. The pillar registered her touch and began downloading her team's completion data. One by one, her teammates followed. Jake, then Noratel, then Zipnak, and finally Skarak. As the last team member registered, the beacon pulsed brighter, and the phantoms suddenly became aware of their presence. But it was too late. The extraction sequence was already complete. Team 7 extracted successfully, Vextar's voice announced over the intercom. Report to debriefing chamber Alpha. They made their way out of the simulation maze through a tunnel that opened from the extraction chamber. As they walked toward the debriefing area, they passed other teams that were still struggling through the early sections of the maze. Through observation windows, Maya could see Kalari teams trying to telepathically coordinate attacks against phantoms, and Zephyrian teams attempting to outrun the hunter-killer drones. "Maya," Skarak said quietly as they walked, "my species has conquered worlds through strength and aggression. We pride ourselves on being apex predators, but what you did back there? That wasn't predatory behavior as we understand it." "No," Maya agreed. "It was something different." "What would you call it?" Maya considered the question as they entered the debriefing chamber, where Commander Vextar waited with the expression that might have been approval on his scarred features. "Problem solving," she said simply. Vextar gestured for them to sit in the chairs arranged before his desk. Team 7 completed the extraction in 4 hours and 12 minutes. Most teams require between 8 and 12 hours, assuming they complete it at all. Jake couldn't contain his excitement. Maya figured out how to use the Phantom's own programming against them. It was incredible. The Korthak commander's yellow eyes fixed on Maya. "Explain your methodology, human." Maya straightened in her chair but kept her voice calm and respectful. "I observed that the Phantoms were designed to be efficient hunters, which meant they followed predictable behavioral patterns. Once I understood the patterns, I could manipulate them." "And how did you know to look for patterns rather than fighting the drones directly?" "Because direct confrontation was obviously what they were designed to handle. Any system has limitations and flaws. Finding those weaknesses is usually more effective than trying to overpower the system." Vextar leaned back in his chair, studying Maya with new interest. "Your species has an unusual approach to warfare. Most civilizations develop fighting techniques based on their natural physical advantages. Humans appear to have developed tactics based on what?" Maya thought about Earth's history. The long evolution from prey animals to apex predators, the development of tools and strategy, the countless wars where intelligence had triumphed over brute strength. "Adaptation," she said finally. "We learned to survive by being better at changing our approach than our enemies were at countering it." "Interesting." Vextar made notes on his datapad. "Team 7, you will proceed to Phase 2 of the simulation tomorrow. I suggest you rest and prepare yourselves. The next challenge will test different aspects of your tactical thinking." As they left the debriefing chamber, Skarak walked alongside Maya. "I have fought alongside Korthak warriors, the most feared predators in known space. But watching you work, it was like watching someone who had evolved beyond the need for traditional predatory behavior." "Maybe we did," Maya replied quietly. "Humans spent millions of years being hunted by things bigger, stronger, and faster than us. We survive by becoming something that predators don't expect. Prey that hunts back, but not the way predators think it should." That evening, as they prepared for the next phase of the simulation, Maya sat in her quarters writing in her notebook. She recorded everything she had observed about the maze, the phantoms, and her teammates' capabilities. But she also wrote about something else, the growing realization that this simulation wasn't just testing their tactical skills. Commander Vextar was studying them, learning about human thinking patterns and problem-solving methods. The question was why? What did the Korthak Empire want with tactical intelligence that operated so differently from their own predatory instincts? Maya closed her notebook and looked out the window at the stars beyond Nexus Prime. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new puzzles to solve. But tonight, she had the feeling that she was being evaluated for something much more important than a military academy exercise. Something that might determine humanity's place in a galaxy full of apex predators. The second simulation arena was different from the maze. Where the first test had been about navigation and avoiding threats, this new environment was clearly designed for direct confrontation. Maya stood with her team at the edge of what looked like an ancient city, complete with crumbling buildings, narrow streets, and multiple levels of walkways and bridges. "Phase 2 begins now," Vextar's voice echoed across the arena. "Your extraction point is the tower at the center of the city. However, this simulation includes live opponents. Korthak warriors from my personal unit will be hunting you. They are not programmed drones, they are real soldiers with decades of combat experience." Jake went pale. "Live opponents? Actual Korthak warriors? They will be using training weapons that cause paralysis rather than death," Vextar continued. "But the pain and incapacitation are very real. These warriors have volunteered to test your abilities under true combat stress. There are 3 of them, and they know this city better than you do. Begin. The massive arena doors sealed shut behind them with a sound like thunder. Maya immediately led her team into the shadows of the nearest building, away from the open ground where they would be easy targets. Okay, Jake whispered, checking his training weapon with shaking hands. 3 against 5. Those aren't terrible odds, right? Skarek's expression was grim. You don't understand, human. Korthak warriors are apex predators. 3 of them could eliminate a full military squad from most species. And in an urban environment like this where they can use stealth and ambush tactics, then we don't fight them, Maya said quietly, studying the city layout from their hiding spot. The buildings rose in concentric circles around the central tower, connected by bridges and walkways that created a 3-dimensional maze. We make them fight each other. What do you mean? Noratel asked. Maya pointed to the various levels of the city. Look at the architecture. This isn't just a random urban environment. It's designed to channel movement and create choke points. The Korthak warriors will use their knowledge of the terrain to set up ambushes and trap us in kill zones. So how do we counter that? Zipnak asked nervously. By making them think we're where we're not and making them go where we want them to go, Maya replied. She was already formulating a plan, using principles she had learned from studying Earth's most successful military strategists. But first we need to understand how they hunt. They spent the next hour moving carefully through the outer ring of buildings, avoiding the obvious routes toward the center. Maya observed everything: sightlines, acoustic properties, structural weak points, and most importantly, the subtle signs that showed where the Korthak warriors had positioned themselves. A piece of debris that had been moved recently, a scuff mark on a wall at exactly the right height for a Korthak warrior to have made while climbing, the faint scent of alien pheromones that Noratel's medical scanner could detect. There, Maya whispered, pointing to a bridge connecting 2 buildings about 3 levels up. One of them is positioned to cover the main approach to the tower. See how the bridge has a clear view of all the major streets? Jake squinted at the structure. I don't see anything. You're not supposed to. But look at the shadow patterns. There's a shape that doesn't match the architecture. Maya had spent years learning to spot camouflaged threats in Earth's wilderness. The skills translated well to urban environments. She led them to a building that gave them a different angle on the bridge. From this position, they could just make out the outline of a Korthak warrior crouched behind makeshift cover, waiting for prey to enter his killing zone. Now what? Skarek asked. Even if we know where one of them is, we still can't fight them directly. Maya smiled slightly. We don't need to fight them. We just need to make them think someone else is fighting them. She began setting up another deception, this time using pieces of metal and glass from the ruined city to create false movement signatures. Zipnak helped by rigging small devices that would create heat signatures at timed intervals. Noratel used her medical equipment to generate electromagnetic pulses that would show up on Korthak sensors. Jake, Maya said quietly, I need you to make noise. Lots of noise. But not here. Over there. In that building that's 2 blocks away from the bridge. What kind of noise? The kind that sounds like a team trying to move stealthily but failing. Accidentally kick some debris. Whisper too loudly. Let your equipment clatter against the walls. Make it sound like we're amateur soldiers who don't know how to be quiet. Jake looked uncertain but nodded. He made his way to the designated building while the others prepared their deception devices. At Maya's signal, he began his performance, creating just enough noise to sound like a team trying and failing to move quietly. The effect was immediate. The Korthak warrior on the bridge shifted position, focusing his attention on the sounds Jake was making. At the same time, Maya activated the first false signature device, creating what appeared to be movement in a completely different location. The warrior's head swiveled toward the new contact, torn between 2 potential targets. Maya activated a second device, then a third, creating the impression of multiple teams moving through the city from different directions. Now, she whispered. While the Korthak warrior was distracted by the false targets, Maya led her team along a route that took them completely around his position. They moved through buildings rather than streets, using interior passages and maintenance areas to avoid all the prepared ambush points. They were halfway to the tower when they encountered the second warrior. This one was positioned in a sniper's nest, overlooking the city's central plaza. He had a clear shot at anyone trying to cross the open ground to reach the tower. Maya studied his position for several minutes, noting the angles he could cover and the blind spots in his field of view. "Zip," she said quietly. "Can you create an electrical discharge big enough to overload the lights in this section of the city?" The plenary engineer checked his equipment. "Yes, but it will drain most of my power cells. Do it. But wait for my signal." Maya positioned her team at different points around the plaza, each one hidden but ready to move. She gave Jake a different route to take, one that would put him on the opposite side of the sniper from the rest of the team. "When the lights go out," she told them, "don't run for the tower. Run for the positions I showed you. We're going to make our hunter become the hunted." The lights died suddenly, plunging the central plaza into darkness. The Korthak sniper's night vision would adapt quickly, but for a few crucial seconds he would be partially blind. Maya didn't run for cover. Instead, she ran directly toward the sniper's position, using the darkness to close the distance. She could hear him moving above her, trying to reacquire targets in the sudden blackness. What the warrior didn't expect was for his prey to come to him. Maya reached the base of the building, just as the sniper's night vision fully adapted. She was already climbing the exterior wall, using maintenance handholds and architectural features to ascend quietly. Behind her, her teammates were creating false signatures and movement patterns that suggested they were trying to cross the plaza. The sniper focused his attention downward, searching for targets in the plaza. He never looked up until Maya was already on the same level as his position. She didn't attack him directly. Instead, she activated her last deception device right behind his position. The Korthak warrior spun toward the unexpected contact, his weapon raised, and found himself facing empty air. In that moment of confusion, Maya spoke quietly from the shadows beside him. "You're very good at hunting prey that runs away from you, but you weren't expecting prey that hunts back." The warrior spun toward her voice, but Maya was already gone, having dropped back down to the level below. Her teammates had used the distraction to reach the tower's base undetected. As they climbed the tower's outer stairs toward the extraction point, Maya could hear the sounds of the third Korthak warrior finally converging on their position. But they were already too close to the extraction beacon for him to stop them effectively. "Team 7 extraction complete," Vexter announced as Maya's hand touched the beacon at the tower's peak. They rappelled down from the tower using emergency lines, and Maya could see Commander Vextar approaching with his 3 warriors. The Korthak soldiers looked frustrated but not angry, more like predators who had encountered something completely outside their experience. "Explain," Vextar said simply when he reached them. Maya looked at the 3 warriors who had been hunting them. Each one stood over 8 feet tall, armed with weapons that could have eliminated her entire team in seconds of direct combat. They had decades of experience, intimate knowledge of the terrain, and every possible advantage. "They were hunting prey," Maya said quietly. "But we weren't acting like prey. We acted like a different kind of predator, one they weren't programmed to recognize." One of the warriors, his armor marked with the scars of countless battles, stepped forward. "Human," he said, his voice filled with something that might have been respect. "In 40 years of combat, no opponent has ever made me question my own instincts." "How did you do this?" Maya considered her answer carefully. "You were hunting us the way—" The final phase of the simulation took place in Commander Vextar's private training chamber, deep within the Academy's restricted levels. Maya entered alone as instructed, while her teammates waited in the observation deck above. The chamber was circular, with smooth walls that seemed to absorb light, making the space feel infinite and claustrophobic at the same time. Vextar stood in the center, no longer wearing his instructor's uniform but rather the full battle armor of a Korthak warchief. Scars covered every inch of his hide, each one a testament to survival against impossible odds. His yellow eyes reflected an intelligence that had been honed by decades of combat and conquest. "This final test is different, human," he said, his voice echoing strangely in the chamber. "No tricks, no deception, no false targets or environmental advantages, just you and me, and the question that has been troubling me since you first entered my classroom." Maya remained still, her hands empty, her posture relaxed but alert. "What question is that, Commander? Whether your species represents a new kind of predator, or whether you are something else entirely?" Vexitar began walking slowly around her, his massive form moving with the fluid grace of a born hunter. The Korthak Empire has conquered 17 star systems. We have faced every kind of warrior the galaxy has produced, berserkers who fight without fear of death, telepaths who coordinate perfect battle formations, speed fighters who move faster than the eye can track. Maya turned slowly to keep facing him but made no aggressive moves. And yet you haven't conquered the entire galaxy. No, because there are other apex predators out there. Species that can match us in strength or surpass us in numbers or challenge us with technology we haven't mastered yet. Vextar stopped directly in front of her. But you don't match us in any of those ways. Humans are physically weak. Your technology is centuries behind ours. And your numbers are insignificant compared to established galactic civilizations. That's all true, Maya agreed calmly. And yet, watching you work through my simulations, I began to suspect that none of those factors matter. That your species might represent something far more dangerous than any traditional predator. His hand moved to the weapon at his side. So I am going to test you directly. I am going to hunt you the way I would hunt any prey animal, using every advantage my species possesses. Maya nodded understanding. And if I survive? Then you will have proven that humans are not prey animals at all. That you are something the galaxy has never seen before. Predators who don't look like predators, who don't act like predators, but who may be more dangerous than any creature that has ever evolved. The chamber's lights dimmed to almost nothing, giving the Korthak's natural night vision a massive advantage. Maya heard rather than saw Vextar begin his hunt, his footsteps becoming silent as he activated abilities that had made his species the terror of civilized space. For most creatures, being hunted by a Korthak warchief in darkness would mean certain death within seconds. Maya closed her eyes and relied on senses that humans had developed during millions of years as prey animals. The ability to detect the slightest change in air pressure, to hear the almost inaudible sound of predator breathing, to sense the electromagnetic field changes that came from advanced bioarmor. She moved not to escape, but to understand. Where was Vextar positioning himself? What attack patterns was he preparing? How did his hunting instincts tell him to approach this confrontation? The first attack came from her left, a precisely calculated strike designed to incapacitate without killing. Maya wasn't there when his claws reached the space she had occupied. She had moved not away from the attack but perpendicular to it, using the Korthak's own momentum against him. Interesting. Vextar's voice came from the darkness. You don't flee like prey, but you also don't counterattack like a predator. What are you doing, human? Learning. Maya replied quietly, continuing to move through the chamber in patterns that had no apparent logic. She wasn't trying to win a fight. She was trying to understand her opponent completely. The second attack came faster, a coordinated series of strikes that would have overwhelmed any conventional opponent. Maya flowed around each attack like water, never quite where Vextar expected her to be, but never moving far enough away to escape entirely. You're studying me, Vextar realized, his voice carrying a note of amazement. In the middle of combat, you're analyzing my hunting patterns. Every predator has tells, Maya said, dodging another precisely aimed strike. Micro-movements that telegraph intentions, patterns that repeat because they've been successful in the past. Humans learned to read those patterns because our survival depended on it. And what have you learned about my patterns? Maya smiled in the darkness. That you hunt the way your species has always hunted, by being faster, stronger, and more aggressive than your prey. But you've never hunted anything that studied you back? She changed her movement pattern suddenly, no longer dodging defensively but beginning to direct Vextar's attacks. She moved in ways that forced him to strike at specific angles, to position himself in predictable locations, to follow tactical choices that he thought were his own, but were actually being guided by her responses. What are you doing now? Vextar asked, his voice showing the first hint of uncertainty she had heard from him. Turning you into prey, Maya replied calmly. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. Vextar found himself responding to Maya's movements rather than dictating the flow of combat. His predatory instincts, honed by evolution and perfected through countless battles, were being used against him by someone who understood them better than he did. This is impossible, he growled, launching a final desperate attack with all the speed and power his species possessed. Maya wasn't where his strike landed. She was behind him, her hand pressed gently against the back of his neck where his armor had a joint seam. In a real fight, that would have been a neural disruptor, she said quietly, or a blade or poison. The attack doesn't matter. What matters is that you didn't see it coming because you were focused on hunting prey that wasn't acting like prey. The chamber lights brightened slowly. Vextar straightened and turned to face Maya, his expression unreadable. For a long moment they stood in silence while he processed what had just happened. 43 years of combat experience, he said finally. 17 major campaigns. Over 200 individual duels with enemy champions. And you just turned me into the prey animal. Not me specifically, Maya replied. My species. Humans spent millions of years being hunted by everything that was bigger, faster, stronger, and more dangerous than us. We survived by becoming something that predators don't expect. Prey that learns, adapts, and eventually hunts back. Vextar removed his helmet, revealing features that showed deep thought rather than anger or humiliation. The Korthak Empire has been searching for allies, species that could complement our military strengths and help us face the challenges that still exist in the galaxy. And what did you find? Something much more valuable than allies, Vextar said, walking to the chamber's control panel and opening the doors. We found teachers. Maya's teammates rushed in from the observation deck, followed by other instructors and students who had been watching the final confrontation. Jake was practically vibrating with excitement, while Noratel and Zipnak looked awed by what they had witnessed. Even Skarak seemed to see Maya with completely different eyes. The simulation is complete, Vextar announced to the assembled group. All participants have exceeded expectations, but one participant has demonstrated capabilities that require reassessment of our understanding of human tactical thinking. He turned to Maya with something that might have been a bow from a being not accustomed to showing respect to other species. Maya Rodriguez of Earth, the Korthak Empire extends an invitation for your species to join us not as subjects or allies, but as partners. You have shown us that there are forms of predatory behavior we never imagined. Maya looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her with new respect and, in some cases, barely contained fear. The quiet human who had sat in the back row taking notes had become something none of them expected. Proof that the most dangerous predators might not look dangerous at all. I'll convey your message to Earth, she said simply, but I think you should know something about humans before we discuss any partnership. What is that? Maya's smile was gentle, but there was something in her eyes that made even the massive Korthak commander take a step back. We're not the apex predators of our planet. We're not even close. We just learned to be the thing that apex predators fear, the prey that hunts back. As the various alien students and instructors filed out of the chamber, discussing what they had witnessed in hushed, amazed voices, Vextar lingered beside Maya. Human, he said quietly. What is the most dangerous predator on your world? Maya looked up at him. This creature that represented the pinnacle of predatory evolution. This warrior who had conquered star systems and never known defeat until today. Humans, she replied. We didn't get to the top of the food chain by being the strongest or fastest or most naturally armed. We got there by being smarter, more patient, and more adaptable than everything that